So the first thing I want you to understand is when you're going to go to seed your lawn, you need to have a 45-day window. Now, please understand that what I tell you here, these are not hard and fast rules. You can break these rules all you want. I tend to give you the most conservative advice that I can. In other words, I'm trying to appeal to the masses. I have people in this audience that are super duper brand new, and I have other people that are very much experienced. If you're more experienced, you can do a lot of things outside the lines. You can color outside the lines and make beautiful artwork. However, if you're brand new, it's always best to stay inside the lines, follow the best practices, and set yourself up for success the best way you can. But either way you go, at the end, we're all hoping for the best. So that being said, 45 days is the seeding window that you want. So let's kind of talk through that a little bit. The first thing to think about is with cool season turf is it's going to germinate. Now listen, germination doesn't mean you see it. Typically seed's going to germinate under the ground. It's, within an inch of the top, but it'll germinate under the ground and you won't see it. You don't actually see the sprouts for several hours to a day or two. But either way, it's going to take a good 5 to 10 days before you are going to see those baby grass plants, as Grass Daddy likes to call them, as baby grasses. You will likely see those between 5 and 10 days. Now, it's kind of interesting because back in the day when I worked for ChemLawn, way back, we typically didn't seed with Kentucky bluegrass much because it always took 20 to 21 days to be able to see the seedlings of Kentucky bluegrass. And in fact, I can remember I lived in Griffith, Indiana, and I bought a Scott's mix, 100% blue mix, and I don't know what the cultivars were in it. I was never that funky fresh with it way back then, but I know it was 100% Kentucky bluegrass, and I put it in a bunch of spots in my house in Griffith, Indiana, and watered every single day, did the whole thing. I used a little bit of seeding mulch to cover it up, which is the, ground up paper stuff that absorbs water and this and this and that, and I did it all perfect. And I remember watering it every day, day 5, day 10, day 15, nothing. And I'm like, man, did this fail? What is going on here? Day 20, day 21, finally I start to see a few, little baby grasses coming up there, and then from there it grew. But I remember that 3 weeks was painful for me, and I was somebody that was in the business. I kind of touted myself as knowing what I was doing, and I started to lose confidence. And even now, when I talk to guys that have been in the business for a long time, they will say, be careful with recommending seeding Kentucky bluegrass because Kentucky bluegrass takes so long to germinate. And what can happen is people that are inexperienced, or even me when I did have some experience, you think it didn't work. You think something failed. You think it washed away. You think it died. You think birds ate it, when really it just takes 21 days for Kentucky bluegrass to germinate and show itself. However, I was watching a series of videos on YouTube here recently, and you guys could check out this channel. It's called Shortcut Lawn. It's a guy out in the central coast of California, and he did a Kentucky bluegrass seeding on his lawn. Now, he did a complete burn down and start over, and he did a complete seeding there, and he actually had germination and showing baby grasses within 5 days, Kentucky bluegrass, and he did pure Kentucky bluegrass. So what that tells me is that since I worked for ChemLawn, that's been a good 15, 20 years ago or so, that since I worked there, the cultivars or the varieties or the science or the GMOs, I don't really know what it is, but they're doing something that is allowing that Kentucky bluegrass or forcing it to germinate a lot quicker than it normally would. I don't know if they're freezing it and then sending it to stores. I don't really know. There's all kind of tricks and stuff, but if somebody knows, how come Kentucky bluegrass seed is germinating in 5 days now when 15 years ago the entire Kentucky bluegrass seeding world knew it took 21 days? One of you will have to tell me what the difference is. But aside from that little rant right there, just know that it's going to be 5 to 10 days from the day you plant, as long as you start watering right away, for you to see baby grass. Perennial ryegrass will definitely come up at the 5-day mark. Kentucky bluegrass, well, according to Shortcut Lawn in his video, 5 days, but I'm still going to say Kentucky bluegrass is going to be closer to 10 days. And then sometime in the middle is the turf-type tall fescue. 5 to 10 days to start seeing baby grass. So we're kind of marking time now here through our 45 days. So at the end of 10 days, most of your grass seed should have come up. Now think about this though. There are what we call late bloomers or late starters, just like with your kids, right? Some kids are talking sooner than others. Some kids can read in kindergarten. Some can't read until 2nd grade. Maybe that's a little long, but you get the analogy. Everybody has their own pace, and the same is with grass seed. Now with grass seed, it can be environmental. One area might get a little bit more water than another. Sometimes the seeds might be planted a little bit deeper than others. Sometimes the seed might have gotten foot traffic or moved. There's a lot of different reasons why seed will germinate over different time frames, but just know, sometime around that 10 to 12 day mark, most of it should be up. However, keep watering hard because even through day 15, 16, 17, some of that slower grass seed, some of those late bloomers will still be coming up. So you still want to keep watering hard all the way through day 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way up through there. Now from day, 15 to 20, all the way up to day 30, what we really want is we want the lawn to grab sunlight. All of that new grass that's coming up, the reason it's putting up those green grass blades is because those green grass blades are big old satellite dishes that just suck up sunlight, so that way the grass can start making its own sugars. It's going to live off what's in the seed for only so long, and it needs to set roots, and it needs to set blades or grass blades so that it can grab sunlight and start the process of photosynthesis, which is what's going to help it to thicken up, which is what's going to help it to get dense, which is what's going to help it to start pushing rhizomes if it's Kentucky bluegrass, for example. So the thing about that is from day 15 all the way to 30, you need to keep watering and let the grass grow. Now, typically at day 30 to 35 with cool season lawn, that's when you can do your first mowing. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared of it. Get out there and do it. The grass will be fine. It'll come back. Sure, you might trample a little bit here and there, but that's just how things work. Survival of the fittest. Get out, get on, get off, and mow it day 30 to 35. Then from there, you're going to have another 10 days to day 45, and at day 40 to 45, that's your second mowing. Once again, mow again, be quick about it, get on, get off, and you should be good. That's your 45 days. Now, the reason the 45 days matters is because of that 2 mowings. If you look at a lot of different labels on products, they will tell you to not apply this product to new seedings until you've had 2 mowings, where they'll say until you have a dense turf stand or an established turf stand and or 2 mowings. The reason the 2 mowings matter is because that tells you that the grass has established itself at least to the point where it can live on its own. It can sustain itself. It's got enough of a root system and enough grass blades up there to grab sun that it should be cycling and growing and in a growth mode and healthy. Some might use the term that it's hardened off. And that's important because after 2 mowings is typically, especially if we're seeding here in the fall, you're coming up to a weather extreme, and that weather extreme is called winter. And winter is a weather extreme, the exact opposite of the weather extreme in the middle of summer, which most of you are just coming out of. And grass does not do well in extremes. That's why it goes dormant in the winter, and if you don't water it in the summer, or even if it gets too extreme, it will turn brown and go dormant in summer. That's what grass does. It checks itself out. It hibernates. It says, hey, this is way too much for us to handle. Let's just suck ourselves in. Let's close ranks. Let's protect the crowns here. Let's keep the crown alive, and we'll wait for more mild temperatures, more favorable weather, and then we'll start growing again. And that's what winter does. It shuts the grass down. So after 2 mowings, you can typically understand or typically feel confident that your grass is established enough to survive the coming winter. So that's why you need a 45-day window for seeding cool season lawns. Now, as far as when to seed, there are logical times when you should seed and logical times when you shouldn't. The best times to seed are when soil temperatures are between, and I'm going to say it this way because we're going into fall, are between 70 degrees and 55 degrees. That's the window that you want to look for. Now, if you were going to seed in the spring, it would be the opposite. You would seed when soil temperatures reach 55, and you'd want to make sure that your window closes when they reach 70. Where on the flip side, in the fall, you want to start seeding when soil temperatures are approaching 70, and know that the end of your 45-day window needs to be sometime around the time when soil temperatures hit 55. Those are your windows. That's your 45. I think it's pretty logical to think you would not seed during an extreme time of winter, like in Fishers, Indiana, where they get snow and the ground freezes. I was stationed at Fort Benjamin Harrison in the very early 90s. I went to the Defense Information School there. I think that base is closed now. In fact, I'm sure it is. It's closed now. You can still drive around it and everything. I think the commissary might still be there too. Y'all let me know, and they turned some of the dorms into condos. But the long and the short of it is, I know that they get a lot of snow. I know that their ground freezes, and you don't want to seed the lawn when it's frozen. I mean, that makes sense, right? People talk about dormant seeding, but just don't do it. It's just not a good idea. The flip side would be the same in the middle of the summer. Can you seed in the middle of the summer? You sure can, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But the key is to not seed during the extremes. So that leaves you with spring and fall, and of those 2 choices, fall is the best. The reason that I want you to seed in the fall rather than the spring is because in the fall, you put your seed down, you got your 45-day window, everything grows good, and then winter comes in and shuts everything down, and you're done. You don't have to worry about any weeds or anything like that invading or taking over because winter shuts all of them down too. Now, there is the case of fall annuals. That's a whole nother thing we're going to go into. Henbit, Poa annua, hairy bittercress, all those kind of things. We're not going to get quite into that so much, but the fall is still the best time to seed because, again, winter shuts all the competition down for you so you can start back up again in spring. Whereas when you seed in the spring, you got to wait for the temperatures to come up right out of winter. When they hit 55, you go ahead and seed. But the other thing that's growing in the spring, because everybody's coming out of winter, so everybody's trying to gain ground, gain traction, gain roots, gain more leaves. Broadleaf weeds are spreading out. Dandelions. The other thing you have is crabgrass germinating. Crabgrass is trying to gain a foothold, and crabgrass is a much bigger problem, and dandelions are a much bigger problem, and clover that comes in is a much bigger problem. So what happens in spring when you seed is you can't do anything to control any of those weeds because any pre-emergent or post-emergent that you put down can kill your young grass. So what you have to do is contend with that all year. It's better to wait till fall when temperatures are more mild. Most weeds are starting to shut down. Yes, there are a few that will germinate, but you can really concentrate on getting that grass looking good, getting that grass growing, getting that grass healthy, and then let winter just shut everything down for you.